Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss the Real Housewives of Atlanta Season 13 Reunion Part 1. I'ma just say it, y'all. The vibe of this Part 1 felt really weird to me, and I just couldn't put my finger on why it felt so weird. Atlanta really needs to be revamped and recasted in all seriousness. Potomac, Jersey, and Beverly Hills are outlapping them, are outpacing them. Like, Atlanta really needs to get it together. I'm praying that these next two parts are a bit better, but this part 1 just felt really strange to me. So grab your wine, because I certainly need my red wine. I was drinking before, that's why you see the lipstick smudges. Okay, don't judge me, all right? Okay. I'm in a very silly mood, okay? So this recap is going to be fun. It's going to be silly. It's also going to be me dragging SpongeBob SquarePants, aka Drew Sidora. So let's just jump right on into it because we don't have a minute to spare. We started off and it's a very sultry opening, paying some cute homage to Kandi and the dungeon party that was in South Carolina with Mr. Bolo. One of my favorite episodes to date, all right? So we see Andy going into all the ladies' rooms, seeing how they're feeling. All the ladies come on out to the stage, or should I say the dungeon. And Andy is in love with Kandi's outfit. Now, me personally, Kandi's outfit would have been cute for a Halloween party, but for the reunion, it just felt really flat to me. But let me know what you all thought. I thought that Kenya, Cynthia, and Porsha looked the best. I liked all of their dresses out of everyone else's. Like, everybody else, in my opinion, missed the mark except those three. So you know how Andy always likes to start the reunion off on a light note. He starts it off talking about the ladies and the battle with the fridge during the quarantine. He even admits that he gained 10 pounds in quarantine as well. So then he starts off with Kenya. Kenya lets it be known that she lost the weight. She is now down to, I think like 150 pounds. So she's back at her original weight and she is happy. Andy goes on to address the rumors or the speculation on social media and from the other ladies that her butt is fake. Kenya says that she doesn't care what people say or think regarding her butt and that all the ladies have seen her butt and her butt is real. Cynthia goes on to say that she's lost 10 pounds. Kandi says that she was motivated to lose the weight because of her acting roles, but also because she did not like how frumpy she looked this season. They all laugh about that, and then Andy turns his attention to Porsha, and he goes on to ask if she's still vegan or a baby vegan or whatever Porsha is trying to say that she is now. And Porsha's answers were just stupid to me. I was just like, we've seen her eat ribs and whatnot, so all of this whole, is she vegan or is she not? She's not vegan. Vegans don't eat ribs. Like, just knock it off. I was just over that little segment between her and him. She ends it off by saying that she hasn't had a hot dog in a long time, and Andy caught that little double entendre, and he says, take that however you'd like to take it. And I said, So now Andy goes on to segue into Porsha and her activism work. So Andy goes on to compliment Porsha and tell her how proud he is of her, the way that she's using her platform for Black Lives Matter and all the activism. He's just really happy to see it. So then Drew chimes in about how she's so inspired by Porsha, because you guys know that Porsha and Drew are now new best friends. I'm going to bet you $5 that if Drew comes back for season 14, her and Porsha will probably fall out. I don't see their friendship lasting. Drew seems to have this newfound obsession with Porsha, to be honest. If you've seen her recent pictures, she's trying to look and morph into Porsha Jr., but that's another story for another day. So now we get into Kenya's comments regarding Porsha's activism. Kenya lets it be known that she is happy that Porsha is doing the work and being on the front lines, but she felt the shade from Porsha, and she goes on to say that Porsha excluded her from the PSA that she did. Porsha doesn't really acknowledge that. She goes on to say, well, why would I include somebody who has been very disparaging about me? Why would I include them in such an important thing? Porsha goes on to say that the cause is bigger than her. Girl, we know that. I just have a problem because there has been so much that was cut out due to production. They have really painted Porsha in this really amazing light, and they've really made it seem like Kenya is coming after her for no apparent reason. Because even I at first was like, oh, like, okay, that was a little bit shady. And knowing what we know about what she was doing behind the scenes regarding Kandi and Kandi wanting to be involved in the movement as well, it's like, sis, enough already. I just don't like how Porsha's fans hate Kenya so much that they're not able to see when Kenya is right about something. Drew interjects and she is sticking up for her best friend. Drew has a hard on for Kenya. It is the same dynamic, in my opinion, as Monique Samuels. I know I said I would never say her name again, but I have to so that you guys can get this analogy. It's the same dynamic as Monique and Giselle. Drew craves Kenya's validation and acceptance. She wants to be friends so badly with Kenya. And because Kenya is like, this girl is a weirdo and a loser, Drew is obviously very hurt by it. So that's why she's aligned herself with Porsha. But believe you me, if Kenya should ever give Drew the chance of being friends, Drew will drop Porsha like a bad habit and she will be with Kenya. It's the same dynamic. Drew only hates Kenya because Kenya doesn't really want anything to do with her. That's all it is. So Kenya says, Porsha, I am proud of you about what you're doing. I'm just saying that you excluding me was a little bit shady. Of course, Porsha has selective hearing, so she doesn't acknowledge Kenya complimenting her and saying that she's proud of her. So now we get off of all of that, and Andy brings up Porsha and Dennis. Y'all know I don't give one F about Porsha and Dennis. She's using this as a storyline, and that's been expired for a good minute now. I don't care. She knew who she was getting involved with when she got with him. She knew that this man was a womanizer and a serial cheater, and she turned a blind eye anyway, so miss me with it. She just says that they are doing the best at co-parenting, and he stopped buying her Chanel purses. Andy goes on to ask Porsha if she's dating. And Porsha says that she is dating. She recently went out with a guy that LaToya had hooked her up with, and she was upset because the guy was a lot younger than her, and she jokes that he was young, dumb, and full of cum. So now Andy turns his attention to Kenya. and her whole marriage and divorce saga with Mark. Kenya lets us know that they are still in court, but she won sole custody of Brooklyn. And I was like, thank God. She lets us know that she filed for divorce and that Mark is no longer asking for any alimony. Thank God. Because y'all know how I feel. I don't believe in women giving men money at all. I don't play that. So now Andy reads a viewer's question about why wasn't Kenya also upset at Kandi for divulging her business, but she was mad at LaToya. Kenya says, because Kandi and Todd and Dawan are my friends, so they care about me. And when LaToya was divulging my business, she was telling it to women who don't care about me, i.e. Porsha, Shamia, and Drew. That's why I was annoyed. Drew interjects to say, and I was defending you too. I said, see, right there. Drew is panini pressed to be in Kenya's good graces. Don't let Drew and her dramatics and her foolishness fool you. She is really pressed to be on Kenya's good side. I was like, girl, if you don't like Kenya so much, why are you so pressed to let her know that you too defended her? It's like, shut up. Like, she just gets on my nerves so bad. So Andy reads off another viewer question about how did Kenya feel seeing how annoyed Kandi and Cynthia were by hearing about all of her mess with Mark. So Cynthia says, this man just does not treat her right. He just seems to be hell-bent on making Kenya's life like a living hell, and I just want her to, be happy. And Kandi pretty much piggybacks, says the same thing. And then Kenya says that if it weren't for the pandemic, she feels like they could have worked out their issues. Kenya, pandemic or no pandemic, that man is crazy and he is determined to make your life hell. Mark does not want to work this out. That man has some sort of disorder. I don't know if it's narcissism or maybe he has some sort of personality disorder, but there's something not right. He doesn't want to be in a healthy or happy marriage with Kenya. He wants to be a contrarian. He wants to put her through the ringer by any means necessary. So she just needs to let that dream go of them ever reconciling and being this one big happy family and them being this, happily married couple. It's just not happening because Mark is good and crazy. But again, I digress. Andy reads another viewer question asking if the relationship between Kenya and her mom is the reason why she goes after and has all these destructive relationships. Kenya agrees with the viewer and says it's definitely why she seeks out, bad relationships, because she is seeking for something that she did not receive from her mom. Andy goes on to ask if her mom has contacted her since having Brooklyn. And Kenya lets us know that her mom has sent Brooklyn gifts and toys. And I guess that's her way of trying to reach out to Kenya and sort of make things right. Andy is happy to hear that. Kenya's mom should really feel ashamed of herself. Like, she really owes Kenya a world of apologies. And even an I'm sorry simply isn't enough. I mean, she's really caused Kenya a lifetime of hurt and pain. So now the whole question of why was Drew picking at Kenya's marriage the whole time comes up, and Drew deflects and brings up Kenya calling her a stray. It's just really funny to me how Drew and Porsha could not own up to their stuff, but they really were trying to hold Kenya's feet to the fire for every single thing. And it's like, yes, that comment was shady, but again, why did you feel the need to keep picking at her marriage when your marriage is a hot, raggedy mess with your man going to Tampa for 3 days and not telling you? And we'll get to that in just a minute. So Kenya and Drew keep going at it. Kenya apologizes for the stray comment, and Drew just won't let it go. So now Andy's like, okay, let's pivot this conversation and let's get serious. He addresses Kenya's native costume at the Halloween party that Fallon threw. Kenya lets it be known that she received a lot of hate. And she also goes on to say that she thought that she was honoring her ancestors and her relatives because she is also Native American as well. So she also goes on to say that some of her relatives had to sit her down and explain to her why it was so offensive and how their customs are not to be used for a costume. So of course, since Andy is holding Kenya's feet to the fire, Porsha interjects and has to add salt to the wound. She goes on to say, Kenya, it's so funny how you want grace and mercy for your mistakes, but you can't seem to extend the same grace to other people. Porsha then brings up how she feels like Kenya keeps bringing up her Underground Railroad mistake from 8 years ago. And while Porsha gets on my last good nerve, I'm not going to deny what she said. Kenya fans, you have to admit and be truthful that Kenya can be very hard on people, and she doesn't always extend people grace when they mess up. Can we be fair and agree to that? My thing with Porsha was you could tell she was really getting enjoyment trying to embarrass Kenya because she kept saying, that was very ignorant of you, and that was just really awful of you to do that. And it was like, she's already apologized. She's acknowledging that it was wrong and that she'll never do it again. She's acknowledging where she messed up. Like, why do you feel the need to keep saying anything? Did you have this same energy when your BFF, who is no longer on Potomac, wore that as well in season 2 at Karen's housewarming party? Remember when she did that and Giselle was like, is she stupid? Like, does she not know how offensive that is? Like, let's not act like that. And it was funny because Kenya called out Porsha's sister Lauren for also wearing a native outfit as well. And Kenya also addressed Drew wearing a similar costume as well. Drew gets all defensive saying, this was not a Party City costume, okay? I was in New Orleans honoring my ancestors and it was a ceremony. Now, Kandi's facial expressions told a story, okay? Kandi was not here for it at all. Porsha is trying to deflect from her sister Lauren also wearing a similar costume. Now, I said if you're going to try to hold someone else's feet to the fire, make sure that your inner circle is tight as well. Because while you're sitting up here trying to hold Kenya, you need to hold your sister to the same exact accountability as well. And even though Lauren isn't a cast member, we do see her on the show fairly often. So let's not. So now we see Mr. Ralph, and Andy starts it off with them showing the montage of Drew and her son Josiah and the journey that they've been on with his biological father. So Andy goes on to ask about Josiah's relationship with his bio dad. Where is it now? Drew says that it's coming along. The bio dad, old daddy, as she likes to call him, he came down for Josiah's 10th birthday. So it's a start in the right direction. Drew and Ralph go on to say how they want to share this because they want to help other people in similar situations. Andy's very touched by hearing this. Kandi makes mention of how she was very touched by seeing Drew and her whole journey with Josiah and the biological father as well. Kandi goes on to say how she wishes that things could be different between Riley and her baby's father, Block. Andy goes on to ask Kandi about what the whole court situation is right now. Kandi goes on to say that the judge rules in her favor and how Block has to pay her the back child support. And she even goes on to say that she wasn't the one who wanted to do this. It was Riley who wanted her to go after Block for the money because Riley feels like she's owed that money. Riley is well within her right to want that back child support. She's definitely owed that. It's very apparent that her father is a deadbeat and doesn't really want to have any sort of relationship with her. So the least she can get for her troubles is a nice lump sum of cash. So I wasn't mad about hearing that. So now Drew interjects and addresses Kenya about Kenya retweeting a tweet regarding the whole situation with Josiah and the baby's dad. The tweet said something about how they found it to be cringy about Josiah and this whole thing being on TV. Drew is so angry and says, "That's very irresponsible of you to use your platform in this way, and let me know how low you want to go because I can go even lower." All of a sudden, Drew starts crying. When I tell you that was one of the worst performances that I have ever seen in my entire life, I was like, girl, you can't even squeeze a tear out. Like, I was just so over Drew in her theatrics. I really was. Like, let's just clear something up. Kenya did not say anything bad about the little boy. A lot of people found Drew's storyline regarding her son and the baby father to be very cringeworthy. I even said that Drew should not use this same storyline as she comes back for season 14. I feel like certain things are a little bit too personal to be shared on national TV. Drew thinks she's so damn slick and she really gets on my last nerve. All of her antics at this reunion were so exhausting. Drew is a weirdo. So Kenya offers Drew an apology and says, look, I'm sorry. Drew, of course, says that she will never forgive her and she's just angry and she's just done with Kenya. Kenya handled that better than I would have because I would have lit into Drew and I would not have apologized to her at all. It would have been like, sis, you know good and well I wasn't talking about your child. Like, I thought it was cringeworthy that you were using this as your storyline in the first place. And what? It would have been that. I wouldn't have paid any attention to her fake tears whatsoever. I would have just sat there like, okay, girl. Oh, like I just don't have any patience for BS, and Drew is sitting up here BSing everybody. So now we get on to Ralph and the infamous Tampa trip. Andy asks the $64 million question, who was in Tampa with you? Ralph goes on to give a BS answer about how the beach is a place of refuge for him and it was just him. Drew chimes in to say that Ralph showed her all the receipts, showed her all the restaurant receipts, the hotel receipts, and it was just him. I said, if you want to sit up there and believe his lies, then I have some beachfront property and I would sell you, because absolutely not. He was not in Tampa by himself. And even Andy pointed out how Tampa is like one of the biggest strip club capitals in the country. So if you think that he was just there walking on the beach and riding horses, you have another thought coming. There have been a lot of rumors floating around about this whole Tampa trip was fake. A lot of people have been coming out saying that Drew and Ralph both manufactured and conjured up this whole story so that she could have a storyline and stay on this show. I now believe those rumors because it's apparent that she needs the money. From that stupid, cheap gift that she gave in last week's finale episode to them owing $30,000 to contractors, it's just showing me that their money is tight and I don't put anything past either of them. Andy points out how Kandi looks like she is not buying what they are trying to sell at all. Kandi admits that she's not buying it, but she says that she's not the one who has to buy it. Drew is, and if Drew likes it, then she loves it. So Ralph goes on to apologize and say that he will never do that again. But he does admit that he was actually really upset when he saw all that went down in South Carolina with Bolo. And they're all joking and laughing about that. Andy goes on to ask the other women how would they feel if their husbands left them for 3 days. And Cynthia's like, if Mike did that, then since he's a rules guy, I would get to go away for 3 days as well. Kandi lets it be known that all hell would have broken loose had Todd just up and went for 3 days without telling her anything. So then Andy reads a viewer's question about how Drew kept saying that her marriage is perfect. Drew tries to make a joke about that and deflect, and then says that her and Ralph have been on the brink of divorce quite a few times. I'm like, sis, you're telling us stuff that we already knew. Like, that marriage is a mess. Nobody's buying it that you two are happily married. I think that you guys are hanging on by a thread. And the only reason why you're sticking it out is because you don't want to be divorced. You want to say that you have a husband since you are a grade A pick-me. Then Drew goes on to add how she and Ralph are now in counseling and they go every Monday. So they are chugging along nicely. Again, I think it's BS. I think that their marriage is still hanging on by a thread, counseling or not. But whatever. I just think that Drew is just a loser. I really do. I don't like her attitude. I think she's very disingenuous. There's such a phoniness about her. Then Drew decides that she has another bone to pick with Kenya. She's upset at how Kenya was flirting with Ralph. Kenya's like, girl, I know you're not talking about me. Like, sis, I just said one thing, that's it. Like, I was not flirting. So then Andy brings up her recent apology regarding Apollo. And remember how Kenya said that Apollo was fine and all that stuff. And Kenya says, yeah, like that was out of line for me. And another reason why it was out of line because me and Phaedra were not friends. So for me to be gushing over her husband, that was out of order. Like, I'll never do anything like that again. So now we see all the ladies go on break and touching up their makeup, getting some lunch. We see Kandi joke about how she'll have to take off her entire outfit in order to use the bathroom. Then we see Drew and Porsha in one of their rooms, and Drew is talking about Kenya. I'm like, y'all have nothing else to talk about other than Kenya? Drew lets it be known that she wants more apologies from Kenya. I'm like, sis, you're never going to get another apology from Kenya. Like, leave that woman alone. Like, you are so pressed. So now we see that LaToya is there. Andy goes into LaToya's room, and we find out that LaToya isn't feeling well. She has a kidney infection. And Andy's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. So now we see Kenya in her room, and she gets a call from LaToya. LaToya is frantic, like she's really upset and shaken up. We find out that somebody on Drew's team, I think it was Ralph's barber, they barged into LaToya's room to give her some vitamin C packets because they found out that she was sick. So she's like, I don't F with Drew. We are not friends. I don't need anybody on her team, on her crew, on her staff to be giving me nothing. Like, she's really upset by it. So now all the ladies come back to the dungeon, and LaToya has now joined the rest of the cast. LaToya says that she's happy to be with all of her girls except for SpongeBob SquarePants, and SpongeBob SquarePants is Drew Sidora. I died. Like, I lost it. If y'all could have heard me cackle, like, she came out the gate swinging. LaToya says that she is really pissed off regarding Drew's folks coming into her room to give her some vitamin C packets. She's like, look, Drew and I don't mess with each other. There is no reason why she needs to be coming into my hotel room while I'm getting ready for any reason whatsoever. Drew goes on the defense. She says that she wasn't involved in that, and she wants to apologize for that. She had no parts in that whatsoever. We all have found out that Drew is disingenuous and she's a liar. So I, for one, was not buying what she was trying to sell. I 100% believe that Drew put one of her team members up to going to LaToya's room to antagonize her and be shady. Drew and LaToya keep going back and forth, and LaToya then starts reading Miss Drew on her awful fashions all season long. And it's a fact. Drew's fashions were absolutely atrocious. If Drew should be asked back for season 14, she needs to get her clothes and her glam in order. Her makeup looked a fool. Her clothes looked a fool all season long. But again, I digress. The first part of this reunion ends with LaToya and Drew going back and forth, and we see the clips for the next 2 parts. Honestly, y'all, this reunion really does not need to be 3 parts. It could honestly be summed up in 2 parts, but we all know that Andy likes to be dramatic, and unfortunately for us, we're just going to have to stick it out for another 2 parts. But that was my recap. I hope you all enjoyed. You guys already know what to do. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you all for Married to Medicine. All right, guys. Bye.